Hello all, this is Dswank, and I am continuing my post-commentary on my Space Engineer's survival, because the audio was bad. Now, what you see us doing is attempting to take the gyrocopter down into the hole to mine manganese, I believe is what it was. And that was somewhat of a challenge. Also, the gyrocopter's not exactly level, but it worked out. We got a full load while mining. Let's see. This episode's a little longer than normal, or what I was planning, but this is going to be the last one with post-commentary, hopefully. Hopefully when I record things later this week, I don't have this problem again. And then we'll get much more enjoyable episodes with people actually talking in conversations and things like that. But until then, we're stuck with me talking about mining and doing boring, dull stuff and nothing major. Now, I had a comment on the previous one asking about Jonathan. For y'all who don't know, I attempted a more of a story-based survival in Space Engineers, and it didn't work out. And Jonathan will be able to join me off and on due to his schedule, but because it's not a story-based, I don't have to explain why he's disappeared and things like that when I record. It's just, he's there or he's not. So, he has his schedule isn't fixed. Now, what I just did was I flew across, went into my iron mine, and drilled another tunnel down, because if I come back, I want to... It's easier to fly down into the iron mine. I've done it 3 or 4 times already, and carried loads out, so it's easier to do that. And so we pretty much just fill up the entire thing with a bunch of manganese. And yeah, it was a rather dull mining, but the whole reason why I would have left it in there was because we had our conversation going. But we get the thing filled up, and I jump in, and Jonathan jumps into his seat, and we take off. And I'll let you watch. We had some slight problems. And I think I'm going to pull it off when I'm flying. And we almost did. And actually, we're in pretty good shape up until then. And I died. Rock in the face. Anyway, I grabbed some resources while I was back at base. Come back. Jonathan reads off the resources that we had. And, or needed. And I come back with some bits. And we throw together the ship again. To some degree. And gather resources. There's some resources because I fought some of the mutts, and the mutts, the ones that we killed while we were drilling this hole down, and there were some resources that I put into the connector, which is actually still in existence, surprisingly. So I have to bring back battery. I'm honestly surprised that the tail section didn't just disappear. It's still attached by one block, but we lost the forward. Well, most of my directional thrusters, a lot of other stuff as well. The remote control was a big one that we lost. What I'm doing here is I'm just collecting bits and then flying back to base and getting more resources and then flying back and forth, and we get it repaired. And you may notice I have a problem here, and I didn't realize it until shortly after this takeoff attempt, and all my keys are off, but I put the remote control block on incorrectly. So I will shortly figure that out. I think I figure it out. I'm like, well, I'll give it a try, see if I can think this way, think myself around the error, and then I decide it's too much thinking with all the other problems that we've had, and decide to put it on in a better location. And since we already had all the resources needed to weld it together, there we go. Now, you can see that the cowling for the front engine is gone, and I ended up putting a size larger lifting prop on, so there's some issues, but we get it, or I get it set. Jonathan decides he's going to fly back through via jetpack after kind of guiding me to the hull. And after complaining about how you can't alt control camera in remote control view, I try it again, just the same way we did last time. And I make sure to point myself in the right direction, and off we go, and we're out of the scary hole. And then have to find the base. Jonathan actually doesn't have any of the GPS coordinates, and I spend some time giving those to him once we're back at base. And we loaded up all the lost resources into the 2 cargo containers, and fly back to base, repair the gyrocopter a little more, and I don't know if you can tell through our flyby, but the gun shooting at doggies took out our connector, so we have to re-weld our connection to the second windmill. Unfortunately, that is a thing that happened, and it's not enjoyable having to keep going back and re-weld so we can have power, so we can do things. But I mean, it's going good for the most part. And don't remember why I ran over that. It's been a week or so since we recorded this. But I do know one of the things we're starting to run into is a clogging effect with our resources, because the assembler couldn't hold all the processed resources. And okay, that's when the dogs killed our power. So before we can really do anything, we have to kill all the doggies, so we can be able to maintain our power and not let them destroy our power connection through our turret, which is being incredibly stupid. But I'm just gathering resources and being assaulted by doggies. And none of these, I believe, are any good doggies. They're all good doggies at the moment are one... Well, that was a pretty good doggie. Good doggies are the ones at the moment that have steel plates, because that's our resource drain. Construction components are pretty good, but we're short short metal. Now, that was a messy transition, but what I'm doing here is the backlog has become a significant issue, and we've reconnected the power, but I've got to readjust things so I can put all the resources, because with this mod, it's kind of stupid. The resources that are sitting in the refineries are not auto-pulled into the assembler, because things like the hydrocarbon and stuff like that, it doesn't know to auto-pull. So I'm moving our processed resources out, as well as the new metal, and I'm going to readjust where the assembler is so I can put a large cargo container in between. So that I have to do measuring and making sure I don't screw it up completely. But yeah, also things are going rather slow in the video because we're talking and having a conversation, and that is helpful. So it's not rather boring. And so get things welded up, get the new cargo container in, readjust resources. It's all fairly simple, and it goes significantly faster now that we have some of the higher end tools to do this with. And another thing that is kind of getting in the way is carbon takes forever. I don't know if y'all, if I mentioned it in the previous viewing or not, but I put 3 arc furnaces up on top of the refineries, so things like iron can be processed fairly quickly. And so I go through and eventually get the new storage crate up, and then I decide, well, I'll give the petrochemical thing a chance to see if I can get the power or the hydrocarbon resource. I also was considering building a reactor, or not reactor, a diesel engine, but they take reactor components, and I am completely out of them at the moment due to my crashing ship from the beginning of last episode. And we build up the hydrocarbon, or the Petroleum Refinery, and it takes some time to get it built up. It's not done at this point. Jonathan's transporting metal plates. I believe it has everything but metal plates that needs to be constructed, and then I'm putting in a transport tube to move the resources over. I did say I was doing this for the carbon. Well, we discover later that carbon doesn't work in it, but petroleum shale does. So we process whatever shale we have through it. And that was actually a pretty good shot of the sun coming up just back there. So our time in the dark is almost over. But I slowly get this welded up, and we start running out of resources, iron resources, as this is going on. So we need to go and mine some iron fairly soon. I believe we get almost all of the pipes done. Or maybe we managed to get all the pipes done and the refinery is almost done, or we get pretty close. Maybe I go and salvage from something else. I can't remember. Yeah, we got the pipes done, but we didn't get the refinery done. So, undock, and we're off on our iron run. And iron run, you saw me come out, go down the iron pipe a couple of times to go and get the iron resource. And this actually is a lot easier to go down in than than the magnesium mine. So, unfortunately, once again, I start running into an issue of I cannot see. It's night, and it's dark, and you can't adjust the camera in remote control view. So, it takes me a little bit to finagle the ship into position, or the gyrocopter into position. But we go down, actually fairly easily. We don't really get hung up on anything, and it just sort of settles down very slowly. And we get to the bottom, and we mine up a bunch of resources. And you know that issue, if you've ever watched Sage and Aaron and Scott in theirs, where there's an issue with the aerodynamics mod, in that you get these weird high gravity locations that ships have a hard time taking off out of. One of those appears in the iron mine, and it gives me all sorts of heck. I have taken off with this thing with a full load of iron before, and it's not working. I can't get any lift. There's less structure on the craft now, but I somehow managed, I think just through the camera not wanting to work, getting this up. I should be able to hover, but I can't unless I'm pressing the buttons, and it won't let me move to the right. My right thruster effect is not functioning, so I can't take off. And Jonathan was on there, and he decided maybe he was too fat with a full load of iron, so he got off, and I decided I was going to try and fight it, and it didn't. Sorry about that noise. So that was actually kind of nice. It was confirmation that another one of my friends will be joining us for our recording session this week. So, yay! Next time you see this, we will have a third member of our party. So, we'll have some very good conversations, and like I was saying before, having 3 members to your survival series seems to be the exact number you need to succeed. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm fighting the gyrocopter, and as you can see, it's very tight. It's very hard to see what's going on. It's summer. It's hot in the central part of the country, and I don't have my air conditioner on while I'm recording this after about 3 hours of play, so I'm get frustrated fairly easily. but I'm also hard-headed and Germanic in descent, so I decide I'm not going to give up, and we're going up. Here I decide if I look up and then remote control, maybe I can stick in that... No, didn't work. And I'm continuing to fight this, and I think I pulled off a success in actually lifting off, and it doesn't work. Right. Well, I got close. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can get out of here. And I should have just given up. I should have just said, well, this isn't going to work, and gone back to gone back to base and offloaded all our resources. But no, this is a challenge to my piloting skill. Also, maximum number of bots reached, which I don't think is an issue until later when the dogs start raining down on top of my gyrocopter. But that happened. I have no tail. I have no vertical takeoff capacity. So, at that point, we decide to abandon the gyrocopter and just manually take our harvest back to base. And I decide I'm going to build a Pogo Miner, a small ship Pogo Miner, because at this point we kind of need it. There's no way around it. We've gotten to the best we can with the hand mining. So I start designing our Pogo Miner. We did finally get the Petrochemical Refinery up, and I decided here I was going to go with a 3x3 Pogo Miner. And I hope y'all understand what I mean when I say Pogo Miner. It's a fairly simple concept. The drills are down, and you kind of go down and up and down and up. And I have an idea while building it shortly, because originally my thought was have just a buttload of batteries, because we have plenty of power at this point, and I can do battery power and the thrusters to control this thing, the atmospheric thrusters, and put a small grouping of gyroscopes on here and things like that, and control it like that, and it would work, yes. But then I have the idea, and this clicks just prior to, or just after I need to put all our storage on. But my idea is all my resources that I'm going to be harvesting are under ice. What is one thing you can make out of ice? Well, you can make hydrogen thrusters, right? So I decide that I'm going to use hydrogen thrust to power this thing. And I do some welding, I do some fiddling around as I try and figure out how I'm going to put this thing together. And it takes like 3 or 4 forms before I finally settle on how I am going to like it. And I also think, or had a thought of having to make the drill ship bigger in general. Like, I think I'm going to have to pull out one of the boxes. And then I have the thought, if I put a box here, I can put the connector on. I don't really fully think that. I put batteries around it and block off where I can put the connector, and so I was not fully thinking this through. while I was placing all the resources the ship would need to actually fly. I was kind of here because I'm standing in the position for where I'm going to put the connector. But I stopped liking that idea. And this is when I actually have the idea for a hydrogen-powered thruster. I tear down all this mess I've made. And Jonathan is still transporting, and I think he's finishing welding some things up. And we are talking quite a bit about the sunrise and what it looks like. But there's a lot of me staring at the sunrise, and you can't hear our conversation, so why add that in there? But gather resources. Start welding this bottom platform area, not platform, but the containers up and the drills up, and get as much welded as possible so I can get this bottom part, because no matter what style of ship I build, whether it's atmospheric thruster or hydrogen thruster based, I'm going to need that bottom platform up and running. So, yeah, I need these 2 layers of blocks working. So, no matter what form this ship takes. And as you can see, I get fairly far along welding, but it's nearing the end. Jonathan, I've mentioned he has some vision problems and with color blindness, and he playing games for long periods of time does give him a headache. So we've been playing for a couple hours now, and I'm getting tired, he's getting tired, so we call it quits pretty soon. And so I get a few more welding done on this. But yeah, that's kind of close to an hour between this episode and last of our adventure, 3.5 hour adventure, boiled down to just shy of an hour. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, go ahead, hit like, subscribe, leave a comment below, tell me what you thought, and go ahead, I share it. That's a signal boost for me. Lets the world know I exist. Lets them know that I'm doing videos. And I will see you next time. Until then, bye-bye.